high above the elegant spa town of Hohenbaden Castle, where today tourists sip mineral water and stroll through manicured gardens. Crumbling stone walls still cling to the mountain, like the bones of a forgotten giant. But these ruins were once the beating heart of power, ambition, betrayal, and survival. In the 12th century, when Europe was a mosaic of feuding lords and shifting loyalties, the region formed part of the vast and fragmented Holy Roman Empire. Authority was layered and complex. Emperors ruled in theory, but real power lay with regional nobles. Around 1100, the rising House of Zähringen began consolidating lands along the Upper Rhine. When their line weakened, a branch family, the Margraves of Baden, stepped into prominence. Around 1102, Margrave Hermann II chose a strategic hill overlooking what is now Baden-Baden and began constructing a fortress that would define his dynasty. The castle, later known as Hohenbaden or the Old Castle, was not built for beauty. It was built for control. From its elevation, one could command the trade routes threading through the Black Forest and monitor movements across the Rhine Valley. In medieval politics, geography was destiny. The earliest structure was a compact Romanesque fortress, thick walls, narrow arrow slits, and a central keep designed to withstand siege warfare. Over time, as the Margraves of Baden grew wealthier and more influential, the castle expanded. By the 14th and 15th centuries, Hohenbaden had transformed into a sprawling complex with multiple courtyards, residential halls, towers, and fortified gates. It reflected not just military necessity, but aristocratic ambition. Life inside the castle was a world unto itself. Knights trained in the courtyards, their armor clashing in drills. Noblewomen managed households that required careful logistics, food stores, servants, alliances arranged through marriage. Priests maintained chapels within the walls. In winter, smoke from dozens of hearths curled into the cold mountain air. Despite its strength, life was precarious. Feuds between neighboring lords were frequent, and rivalries could erupt into violence with little warning. The 13th and 14th centuries were marked by territorial disputes within the empire. The Margraves of Baden often found themselves balancing loyalty to the emperor with local power struggles. Castles like Hohenbaden were symbols of legitimacy. To lose one was to lose status and possibly sovereignty. Yet warfare was evolving. By the late 15th century, gunpowder had begun reshaping Europe's battlefields. Cannons could shatter walls that had once been thought impregnable. Recognizing this shift, the Margraves expanded and reinforced Hohenbaden between 1479 and 1515, making it one of the largest castles in the region. New defensive structures were added to adapt to artillery warfare, including thicker bastions and expanded outer defenses. But even stone cannot outlast technological change forever. In 1535, the Margraviate of Baden was divided between two branches of the ruling family, Baden, and Baden-Durlach. This internal split weakened centralized power. Noble rivalries intensified, and religious tensions soon followed as the Protestant Reformation swept through German lands. The region became a chessboard of confessional politics. By the 17th century, Europe was engulfed in the devastating 30 Years' War. Armies marched across German territories, looting and burning as they went. Although Hohenbaden survived this period, the era marked a decline in its strategic importance. The Margraves had already begun shifting their residence to a more comfortable and modern palace in the valley below. The final blow came during the 9 Years' War, 1688-1697, when the expansionist policies of Louis XIV brought French troops into southwestern Germany. In 1689, French forces set fire to Hohenbaden Castle. Flames consumed wooden structures, roofs collapsed, and centuries of dynastic history turned to ash. The once mighty fortress was abandoned, left to decay under wind and weather. And yet, destruction became transformation. By the 19th century, Romanticism swept across Europe. Ruins were no longer symbols of failure, they were monuments to a dramatic past. Travelers visiting the fashionable spa town of Baden-Baden would hike up to the castle ruins, imagining nights and sieges among the shattered towers. The broken walls became part of the landscape's charm. Today, visitors walking through Hohenbaden's open courtyards can still see the remains of grand halls and defensive towers. The wind whistles through empty window frames. Moss creeps across stones once touched by armored hands. From the battlements, the view stretches across forests and valleys, almost unchanged since the 12th century. What makes Hohenbaden extraordinary is not merely its age or architecture. It is the story of adaptation and limits. Built in an era of swords and shields, expanded for cannons, and ultimately undone by the relentless tide of geopolitical conflict, the castle mirrors Europe's transformation from medieval fragmentation to early modern statecraft. It stood as a guardian of trade, a seat of noble rivalry, a refuge in times of siege, and finally, a casualty of continental war. Yet even in ruin, it commands attention, because sometimes the most powerful monuments are not the ones that survive intact, but the ones that endure as echoes of ambition carved into stone.